Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly Q&A thing. This is season 14, episode 13. To start off, do you want to tell people what they're looking at if you're watching the video?
Okay. So, season 14 is the season where we preview what we expect to the upcoming challenge character, and that's going to be Mortal Kombat Scorpion.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of interesting things. One is that, okay, so the obvious, they say that the swipe combo gives bleed for 2 seconds. The swipe combo last hits are less ranged than the first hit. And you wouldn't expect that from the animation because of how long his sword is. But it's important if you want to trigger his bleed on swipe combo. And my tendency, it's almost like a bit of a muscle memory, is that I have a hard time remembering to do a swipe combo when I tag in. My temptation is always to do a tap combo, because the tap combo, when you just as you do it as you tag in if they don't block, you get the combo ender, which usually is great. In this case, it's actually not. So first I got to remember to do the swipe combo. Second, I got to remember to wait, because if I do swipe combo as soon as I tag in, Master's Death Card shoves him way too far. I have to pause, wait a moment, and then I can get the full swipe combo. You see it in a couple of the fights here. That way, make sure the last hit lands, that you get the bleed. The bleeding effect, 2 seconds seems like it's nothing, but if you get your special 2 in, your damage is enhanced. It's actually not a bad mechanic for his passive. Special 2, the first hit that where he brings up the fire, and I think that's where the damage over time starts. Unusually, not the last hit, but the early hits. It actually looks like there's 3 numbers come up, so that even though the animation feels like it almost could be 1 hit, it's actually 3 hits. They're all ranged, but the last hits with the kick are not ranged. So again, interesting, like having to figure out the balance if you want to get the maximum out of his special 2. But the real treat is going to happen sometime around the 10-minute-and-a-half mark in the footage you're going to see. So pay attention in another, I guess, 8 minutes. Remember, all right, so a few weeks ago we were talking about how rare it was for Mother Box to cause the enemy's Raven to dodge her special 2 7 times in a row, right? If the numbers are actually right, that's like a super rare event. It doesn't look that impressive, because I think a lot of the times, it's hard to notice how impressive that is, because a lot of times when it happens, you're not really counting. You just feel like, oh, they're dodging a lot. This, what you're going to get to see, we've called it double supers, or we've called it simultaneous supers. What you're going to see is us doing a super with Mortal Kombat Scorpion at the same time that Batman is doing a super. And so a few things that are neat that you'll notice if you've seen enough of these, and we've got footage of maybe 5 of them so far, that they're both on the screen. It looks like where the map of their super intersects. So they both, each character will have a place where they perform their super. And some of them do it way up in the air, some of them do it on the ground.
Yeah, some of them use the sort of map that they're on, and then some of them, there's like a teleport, right? For Scorpion, there's a teleport, right?
Yes.
Where he then moves to sort of a second map.
Right.
Or at least a second background.
So some of the double supers are just more interesting because there's more overlap. There's a bit of overlap at the beginning, and it's clearly Batman's super is all on the ground, right, with his Batmobile.
Yeah.
So you don't get much past the beginning. So the other thing that's interesting is this is the first time that the simultaneous super caused the screen to go completely blank. Clearly the fight was going on, because if you wait until the very end of it, we lose that fight because we can't see anything. Normally what happens is that the heads-up display disappears. So it's just a clean sort of virgin screen of the 2 characters fighting. I think the opponent can still do specials. We can't, because we need the heads-up display to be able to do it.
Yeah.
We can't tag in our teammates because, again, it requires a heads-up display. So we don't know how much health we've got. We don't know how much health the opponent has. And we were just really waiting to lose the fight. But it's neat. So the other thing I want to say about that is, despite my general preference to win all fights, the one place where I'll make an exception is I'm actually hunting simultaneous supers because they are so rare. Not only they're rare just because you gotta get the timing right, where you're both doing the same time, because it's really easy to miss that, right? But first, it's rare because we hardly ever do supers.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing special twos all the time. In this case, we got very lucky. If you'll watch it, when Batman tags in, he doesn't actually have full 3 bars. He's just short. And the only reason he gets to 3 bars is because he's taking damage from our special 2. So he tagged in. He did not block for our special 2. And our special 2 was from the previous opponent. So it didn't cost us any bars of power. So that's the first thing that had to happen. So it was rather serendipitous that we both had 3 bars of power. And if we tried to spam the super too quickly, like the number 3 too quickly, we would have been faster. So you don't see it, but I paused and I waited the time to let Batman recover enough to do the super, and then we got it.
Yeah.
So it is, I want to say it's vanishingly rare, but it's not really, because like I said, we've got footage of a bunch of them.
But it's hard to make it happen.
It is hard.
It's both rare and you need to behave in a relatively specific way, because if you're just hammering on the special button, then you take precedence.
So you've got to be prepared. I mean, for all the times that
you kind of got to want to make it happen.
So I do lots of sort of fight things sort of on autopilot, but in my mind I've prepared myself that if I've got 3 bars and the opponent's got 3 bars, I'm going to think, when do I hit it to have the best chance for us to do supers at the same time?
Yeah.
And I can't even really prepare, because that was just out of nowhere, right? That we had that chance.
Yeah.
So it's neat. Anyways, it's coming up in another 4 minutes, so watch out for that.
So there we go. And I'm going to recommend something, but I'm going to recommend something a little different than we normally do. We just got off dinner, right?
Yeah.
And so Recipe Tin Eats, Nagi.
Spell it out.
Recipe Tin Eats. Tin Eats. And Nagi. And we just made the Mongolian crispy sticky beef, and it was really good.
Yeah,
it was a really, really good recipe. It was not the hardest thing in the world. It didn't require too many ingredients. Highly recommend that as a meal. So it's just every once in a while I have one, and I know instantly that it's a real winner. And a lot of her stuff is good, but that one was really good.
So you were also saying that the price per portion was pretty reasonable. It was like maybe somewhere between $5.50 and $6.
Yeah, Canadian.
Because that's the only currency that matters.
Mm-hmm.
But what's funny to me is when you compare it to the other recipes that you've tried from that book, that's actually on the high end.
Or not from the website.
From the website.
Yeah.
But it's on the high end of the cost, which is actually kind of great that it's still even that cheap.
Yeah, the higher end. Well, because almost all that price is just in the beef, because a lot of the recipes use chicken and they use like relatively cheap cuts, and everything there is pretty reasonably priced. Nothing there. What I like is that all the recipes are about as cheap as you could hope for them to be, given what they are, right? Some stuff, like fish is more expensive, right? Some proteins are more expensive, some cuts of meat are more expensive.
Right.
But when in doubt, like I know that I'm not going to spend a ridiculous amount of money for the type of dish that I'm making with Nagi. Just really a really good source. I've talked about it before. I'll probably mention it again. Me and my girlfriend cook once a month. It's also funny because recently-ish, every once in a while, my girlfriend puts on this podcast while she's like, in the car or something. Yeah, just
she actually listens to it
in the background. Well, I mean, she tunes it out while we're talking about Injustice, because she does not play Injustice.
Right.
That every once in a while she'll be like, "Oh, you talked about like this, whatever," and I go, "Oh, when was that?" And she's like, "A couple months ago." so I've got a new commenter,
right?
And I see the content, and it's very funny because I think when you look at our community, that it's one of our more consistent commenters now.
Oh yeah.
Well, every once in a while she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I heard this." So at some point in the future, she might listen to this episode, and it's good because I think when we're talking about people in our real life, the way that I often go with this is, if I'm willing to talk about the fact that I have a YouTube channel, I'm willing to talk about what I do, but I'm like, I wouldn't recommend people watch it, and in a lot of cases, I don't tell people what the channel itself is, because I'm like, you're gonna subscribe. Maybe, right? You'll be like, "Oh, I'll watch a video or two." They're not going to be that interesting to you.
Sure.
And then the more people that are out there in the world who I know could be watching any given piece of content that I know in real life, the more likely I am to be self-conscious about it, right?
Right.
So broadly speaking, I want to be able to make this and do it exactly how I feel like it. I want to not worry that somebody's going to watch it. and you know, somebody that I know from a different context is going to watch it, right?
Right.
And so what's kind of nice about that is, you know, she's obviously a relative exception, because if I say something a little embarrassing on here or whatever else, right, she already sort of knows, right?
Right.
She's around me enough that she sees the embarrassing stuff I do anyways.
Right.
I also think it's funny. I can tell that she likes listening to the sound of my voice, because otherwise she spends more than enough time with me that didn't need to click on this too.
That's funny.
Maybe she likes hearing from you a lot. Maybe that's what she gets out of it.
Okay. So one thing occurs to me when you said that, though, that she tunes out when it's injustice.
Yeah.
That as much as we make it not injustice, I think there's still a significant amount that is. Like, it is still tied in
for
quite
sure.
a bit.
Well, I mean, it's the start of every episode. That's the other thing, is that maybe the pro tip for her is that she needs to skip forward a couple minutes until we start talking about something different.
That's true. That's probably more effort than it's worth. It's probably easier to tune out.
Yeah, that's, well, you know.
Yeah.
More effort, but then you actually get to like listen to what's going on. But then you never know, because, you know, we start answering questions and then it's injustice again. And she goes, you know, she's already driving, right? It's too late for her.
Yeah.
She's trapped.
But that's not a bad way, actually, to enjoy this kind of stuff, because I don't know that there's very much. It's not like a technical manual where if you miss one piece, you're missing something critical. It is all rambly. The only way it could be better is if there were replays like there is in sports. Like, the best thing to watch for me when I'm working out, because I'm tuning it all the time.
Baseball?
Any kind of sports almost. Because if there's something good, they replay it. And they make noises. So I realize, I have to tune back in a little bit.
I can think of a lot of things that would make this better. Than, you know, tuning out or listening in your car. I think if different hosts, maybe funnier people,
that would be
people
true.
with more stuff to say. There's lots of you know, listening in your car is one way of doing it, though.
Yeah.
But it's really funny. Sometimes she'll tell me that she listened. I was like, we were hanging out, like you went to the grocery store and we came back, and I'm like, and you were listening to me in the car. Man, I would be sick of me, right? So
yeah,
it's nice of her, anyways. I'm like, I couldn't listen to myself talk for that.
But that is long. A little bit funny. I think one of the things that I've actually enjoyed about doing this is because there's never been any pressure to make this successful. I've never felt the urge to have anybody I know listen to this. You know how a lot of people hustle, and nothing wrong with that, right? They hustle and they say, hey, you got to subscribe, you got to listen to me. Like, they try to get people they know in real life to support them,
but I think
that
just doesn't work, right? When you talk about the volume that you need of stuff, like the volume of watchers, the listeners. I remember I had a friend in high school who was like, oh, I'll put your stuff on in the background or whatever. And I was like, I did the math. I'm like, a number, like the amount of time you need to spend, like it would not be worth your, like the electricity on your computer, right? Like it would cost you more than you're getting from it. But
it would cost them more than we're getting from it. Like,
that's true.
It's a negative kind of.
Oh, and I saw one thing kind of recently that was interesting just before we get into it. I saw a tweet. I wish I knew who it was from. But I forget now. Apparently, so uBlock Origin is one of the sort of really consistent ad blockers, Chrome extension ad blockers that's supposed to be really good.
All right.
And a little while ago, Google dropped support for it. And they dropped support in a way that you could go in and sort of manually re-enable the extension.
Okay.
But you couldn't update it and couldn't whatever. And then relatively recently, they fully dropped support where they just like uninstalled it from your Google account.
All right.
So there's a new, there's some old ad blockers, some of them don't work anymore. And then they have uBlock Origin Lite, which uses a different sort of set of permissions or whatever, or different API. I'm not 100% sure, right? Because I don't really know the back end. But it's compliant with Google's new extensions rules.
Right.
And apparently they just dropped an update that changes something with the video telemetry for YouTube, like their tracking data.
Means. Oh, okay.
And what it means is that if you are a uBlock Lite user, your watches might not actually count for the view counter on YouTube right now. So what people are seeing is they're seeing a big drop in their views.
Right.
No noticeable change in their ad revenue because it's ad blocker views anyways, right?
Right.
So it's the exact same amount of paid views as before.
Right.
And a ratio of engagement to views.
Oh, probably increases.
That didn't make sense. Yeah, because you lose. I saw somebody who had like 2,200 views on their video and had like 1,800 or like 2,000 likes on their video, right? Which just clearly
It's wild.
is it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So your views are way down, but all the other metrics are exactly where they are, and so proportionally the metrics are higher, right? Like your I think their CPM was technically the same, because I think CPM only counts like paid views when they're calculating it.
Yeah.
But so I thought that was interesting. So if our views, depending on how much our views drop, it also only was desktop views, right? Because you can see by platform. So the desktop views are where all the views were dropping, which makes sense because that's also where the ad blockers are, right?
Right. Are there cell phone ad blockers?
I don't think so, because YouTube is through the YouTube app, right? Like uBlock Origin specifically, or uBlock Lite specifically, is a Chrome extension, right?
Okay.
I think there are probably like side-loaded like phone apps that don't display ads, right? There might be like an APK download that strips ads, or is like a different video player or something. But I think in the default YouTube app, there's no way to ad block. I think the other way that you might do that is, I know like the Pi hole, if you've heard of it. It's the Raspberry Pi. It's a Raspberry Pi like software package that lets you set one up, and it is a like router domain level ad blocker that's supposed to block all ads for everything on your network, like by default. So I think if you had that, then you would have ads blocked on YouTube. But obviously that's something different than uBlock Lite, right? I don't know how that handles it, but so I thought that was interesting, right? We're on YouTube right now. That was an interesting thing where I wonder how much our ads drop. And the other thing that's kind of fun about it is that it shows you kind of what proportion of your audience uses ad blockers. And I would imagine that actually would change by content type. I imagine if you're a tech YouTuber, you'd experience a lot larger of a drop, because the likelihood that somebody who is watching your content has like a much higher proportion of your audience has the tech literacy to know about the existence of ad blockers and have one installed if they want one, right? Whereas if you're like a kids YouTuber, I imagine you get a lot less.
I guess it depends on what device they're using. Because I would imagine that some parents would be more motivated to try to protect their kids from ads.
That's true. But whatever. All that stuff is interesting to me, right?
Yeah.
The idea of like sort of proportionality, based off of content, the way that we self-select, and demographic data that shows up in like interesting sort of second order ways, right?
Right.
Anyways, would you like to get into the first question? This one comes from Masonry, TTING.
Masonry Ting.
Masonry to Ting, though.
Ting.
320. Well, whatever. They say, not whatever. But if you want us to pronounce your name right the next time, let us know.
Sure.
And barring that, I think we've given it a fair shot.
Sure.
So they say, if you became the developers of the game, what would be the first 3 new additions / changes would make to the game?
I can think of just one.
I can think of one right off the top of my head, too.
Yeah.
What's yours?
New skins, new characters. That's it. Like, it would take nothing more than that to make this just like a great game. It's the only thing to me that's missing.
So I was actually thinking of something different. That to me was like obvious enough that like it's so broad. Like I would want to say like, what new character would you want? Like if you're the developer, right? You're obviously making new stuff. It's assuming that you're working on it and doing something. Because to me, the thing that most obviously I would want to add is some quality of life stuff. I would want to add the ability to, once you had augmented or elited your character, an option to sort of slide their stats back down.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That to me,
we've talked about.
We
that
have
before.
talked to that, but like a while in the past. To me, that quality of life thing I would add, because then you could let people both max stuff out and experiment.
And you'd have the option to be able to just play at any level that you're at, elite, promotion, or level that you're at, or lower, and set it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Well,
it
would also let you, for example, if you wanted to challenge your friends, right?
Yes.
You could drop your stuff down so that everybody's at the exact same level, and then say, okay, let's see who can do, X faster. Let's see who can do this better, right? And it lets you like really even the playing field. If there was just a sort of a slider or like an arrow thing, and you could just increment or decrement stuff, I think that would be really cool for the sandbox element of the game, which is at the point that we're at, right?
I hadn't thought of that.
So that's a quality of life thing. Yeah, I would just add new content. And if I'm thinking sort of as a developer and not as a player, I would probably want to try to add something that has like a big resource track that just relatively just slow down the rate of progression for you getting something, right? Something that would really have you grinding away at it for a really long time, right? And I think that's like a lot of the stuff when you talk about augments, right? And how difficult it is to get everybody augmented and just the huge volume of stuff.
Right.
I think I would.
So, I see, when you actually suggested being able to slide it, I thought for a minute there you were going to talk about asking for specific characters. And, okay, so...
Yeah, so who would you want specifically?
Well, so here's... Top of mind would be the Watchmen. But what occurred to me right as I was thinking...
those are DC, aren't they?
They are. They're all DC.
Yeah.
What occurred to me was that I was... All right, so I was in a comic book store actually last night.
Oh.
Hadn't been in one in ages, at least one that carried new books. And what occurred to me as I was looking at the titles was that the landscape has changed so much. So many variant covers, so many sort of extensions of specific intellectual properties, right? So that there'd be so many different X books, but also so many different, whatever DC books. It feels like it's fractured in a way that there's so many different versions. And then when I looked through the back issues, there were lots of back issues from, say, the last 10 years and very few from more than 20 years ago. And it's wild to me, I guess, because I don't know if it's because it really has changed so much or because it's been so long since I've collected, because I haven't collected since maybe the beginning of the 2000s, which is the only reason why I have a copy of Invincible #1. But it feels like the kind of characters that I would want may not be the kind of characters that anybody else would want. Because, like I said, it's all this new stuff and it's all variations of the older characters, but also, I mean, literally the comic books, each issue that has like 3 or 4 different versions because they have all these variant covers is wild to me. The market is, it feels like, and when you're talking about books that are like $5, $6, $7 each, and that you have variant covers, what you're appealing to isn't the collector who's going to buy one and just pick the cover they want the most. I think the appeal and the way they're propping up the comic book business is trying to get people who maybe have slight obsessive compulsive tendencies to want to buy multiple copies,
or speculative market tendencies where they're trying to like make money off of it, where they get the sense that maybe it could be valuable. Not necessarily that it is actually going to become valuable, but to trade off of somebody's theorizing, somebody's feeling that it could become valuable.
And it's possible, but I feel like the larger number of people are going to be chasing because they have sort of lower racial variance.
Yeah.
So the just standard ones where they have equal number of copies of, different covers.
Yeah.
Most people figured out that's not a big deal. And the ones that are investing at least are chasing the 1 in 50, 1 in 1,000, or 1 copy per store variants. I don't know. It's just, it is a different world. So, I mean, the other thing was, in the last week, I've been sorting through old comics and stuff. And it was such a different world where, comic book cover price was $1, $1.50.
Yeah.
And you could follow 5, 6, 7 different stories in a month, or 7 different titles in a month, and it wouldn't break the bank.
Okay. Yeah, I've thought of one more thing.
Okay.
That I would add to Injustice, that I think would be interesting. I think I would want to add something that would give people a reason to go back and go through their current collection. So my first off the top of the head thing is that I would add stances to the game. They would be unlockable and upgradable, kind of like the way that you would have to unlock and upgrade your powers, right? And it would probably just be like some one-time fee. And then what it would be is they would mess with your stat blocks a little bit. So you could, for example, take health to add attack, right?
Oh,
and
interesting.
The way that I would balance them out is I would make it so that you would lose more than you gained. So it would maybe be like, 15% more attack for 20% of your health, right?
Right.
So that you could risk reward it, and then you could shuffle people's stats around to be a little bit more like you would want them to be.
Right.
If you want somebody to be a glass cannon, and it would make everybody a little more usable. And I think if I was going to do something interesting with it, I would have it be one of the ways that you could shuffle stuff around is to actually increase your attack speed, right? Like more like the way like a flash is, like the actual animation speed, right? So I think
it would actually be a visible stat instead of something that was inherent in the character.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be visible necessarily. It would be relative, right? Like a 10% faster attack speed, and the same way that Flash can increase attack speed. Well,
but it would have to be visible for you to be able to adjust it. The same way that you're doing crit chance and crit damage.
Yeah. No, I don't think it would be, because it would start just as a default stat, and then you could have like a speed stat, a speed stance, which would increase your speed and decrease your
But it would have
health
to increase by a certain percentage. It would still have to be a
But
number.
the Flash's specials already do that, right? Flashes already increase your speed by a certain percentage.
Yeah.
That doesn't make their base stat visible.
No, but I'm saying that it would have to be a base stat. So if you can adjust it that way, like all the adjustments that are in game in fight are sort of adjustments of what is there. But if you're going to change it to cost you something, if it's not visible, then
I would just say 10% higher attack speed, like the same way that the Flash currently does. I would not display base stats. You don't need to.
No, I don't mean displaying base stat so much as displaying a stat. Like once you do that, you have to have a stat.
No, it would just say you have 10% faster attack speed. It would be relative to every character.
No, but I'm saying it would be. I mean, we're talking about the same thing. I think we're mechanically it's the same, but it's just, there's a place where you just say plus whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that would be interesting, right? Because it would make characters more playable for some people if you have a strong preference, right? If you already have a glass cannon, you could push them a little bit further. It would give you something else to buy. It would let you play all the characters that you already played and see them with a fresh light. Like maybe there's a character that you really like who just feels sluggish, right? And then, you can trade off some of his other stuff to make him play just a little snappier. I think that would be interesting. It would be cool. And it would let you go back and it would give you something to earn a character in your library. And you would be able to apply it across the board, and you would just need to make 5 stances and then just mass apply them. And you would only need to see, maybe on a Flash, for example, like the speed stance would break it just because he would be too fast, right? So there might be some cases where you would need to disable certain stances.
Or you just max it out. There's a maximum that you can actually raise it to, right? The same way that critical chance and critical damage boost, there's a max.
But I think that would be cool, and I think that would make a lot of characters more interesting for me, right? It would open up the possibility space a lot without adding a huge amount of overhead. And it's one of those things where you never know, because just based off how games are programmed, it's sometimes not as clear to you what a change would do to everything else. Sometimes stuff is a lot more sort of held together with duct tape and a dream than you think it is. But my understanding or expectation for the game is that it would not be ridiculous to add that as a mechanic, right? It would not be a huge amount of overhead from a technical perspective.
Was that 3? Maybe more?
That was I think at least 2 from me, and then we said more characters. You said Watchmen.
Yeah.
I said 2 things. Yeah. So that's 3 changes. Does that mean you're co-signing mine?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think. There was something else that occurred to me. I thought, I kept on thinking of little minor stuff. Oh, you know what would be neat? If you had a cosmetic change, but when you maxed out the augmentations on somebody, that their card should appear a little bit different.
Yeah.
I would like that. That would, the same way that it's more fun to play with the Red Sun team, seeing the armor that comes from Red Sun Green Lantern. I like that. That would be a minor cosmetic change that I think that would be even cheaper to implement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so that's at least 3 things, at least 2 from each of us. So there we go. That's a decent answer.
We can do one more.
Yeah, so Pro 100 Gamer 8.
Prue?
That's true. Prue 100 Gamer 8 says, wait, so new cycle of challenge in next 72 weeks?
Not exactly. So, I mean, maybe this isn't clear when we talk about a weekly recap, because I think this is a reference to a weekly recap.
Yeah, because we say a lot of numbers back to back there.
So, potentially the new cycle of challenge characters. So the last time we had a bunch of challenge characters in a row, there were 54 available. Previously, there were only 43. So it was a 43-week cycle. It is potentially now 54, but you don't know that it's a cycle until it actually repeats. So we've had 54 weeks in a row of all those challenge characters that have been available in a continuous 54-week period. Mm-hmm. Then we started off and we've started repeating it, and it's been 18 weeks so far. So that gives us 72 weeks. I think that's the number.
So it's a 54-week cycle, though.
So we should, in another 36 weeks, we will have gone through the second 54 weeks, and we will know if it is actually a cycle.
And I think this comment just speaks to the fact that we could probably some of the information that we say, and this is something that I think about, but I think I've gotten sort of into the habit of we're just accumulating a lot of data, and you do a really good job of tracking the data, which is really good, which lets us sort of be better in our estimations. But this, when I see something like this, it makes me realize that I think the data that is important to us and that's important to have on the back end is not always the exact same as the data that is important for an end user. And so I think to some extent, sometimes we probably err on the side of telling people more than they need to know.
Right.
And if we're not careful, and I think some, weeks I'm less clear than others, I am providing extra data, which is A, mostly not useful, and B, obfuscates the actual or takes away from the quality of the important stuff that you're trying to communicate.
Well, I mean, the beauty of it is people can always ask.
Yeah, that's true. But I think, it's an important thing to think about when you're communicating in general, right? Sure. Which is what information is important for the other person to have, and how does extra information interact with their ability to understand and process the stuff that is important for them to have.
Right. And that also, it's not a homogeneous audience. That there's going to be lots of different levels of understanding and comprehension. So absolutely.
So there we go. I think that'll do it for this week. To finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our lovely patrons on Patreon. That is, do you want to alternate? We'll do one name at a time. Michael Devries,
Irvin Ruiz,
Hoshi127,
Nora Klimek,
and Miguel, who are supporting us on the credited level. We'd also like to give a huge thank you to all of you for supporting us however you do. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.